I once fully catastrophically crapped myself on the streets of Bangkok. It started during the 1 hour walk back from the embassy, those slow, creeping stomach cramps that say, you have 15 minutes tops. About 5 minutes from the hostel, my body simply filed for bankruptcy. No negotiation, no mercy. One moment I was walking, the next I was hovering over the sidewalk like a malfunctioning fountain statue, suddenly sporting a gigantic brown stain that could have been seen from space. The smell? Biblical. I did this sideways penguin waddle into a nearby shop, grabbed the first piece of fabric I could find, and wrapped it around my butt like a makeshift shame sarong. Then I waddled back to the hotel with the dignity of a wounded duck, went straight upstairs, and threw every article of clothing I was wearing into the trash. There was no saving any of it. Indiana Jones himself couldn't have rescued those items. My deepest, most heartfelt apologies to whoever had to take out that bag. I hope they've healed. I've had the same nightmare for years. The moon is crashing into Earth. Not gently either. It's fully on fire, screaming through the sky like a giant flaming meatball of doom. And somehow, my dad's plan is to drive towards it. I'm in the back seat of my parents' old Chevette, which already feels like a threat to public safety. My sister and I are hiding in the back, like that's going to protect us from planetary annihilation. Up front, my dad is white-knuckling the steering wheel, driving like he's trying to outrun both a speeding ticket and the apocalypse at the same time. The moon just keeps getting bigger in the sky. And even in the dream, little kid me is doing the math. I'm in the back of this tiny Chevette thinking, yeah, there's nowhere safe. This car is not outrunning a celestial body. There's this quiet moment where I just accept it. Dream me kind of shudders and goes, well, this is how we go.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Best of and the Worst of Experience, Favorites 1 through 5. In this video, we pull from the first 5 episodes, 10 or so of my favorite videos. We package it up, slap it on its ass, and you get a favorites video. I won't waste any more of your time, but I'll see you in a little while. Bye.
The subway car was doing that lurching thing that makes everyone sway like seaweed when the old drunk lady locked onto her target. I noticed because she pointed first. Pointing is never a good sign. He was a perfectly normal guy, headphones on, reading a paperback, minding his business in the heroic way only commuters can. She staggered over, perfume battling alcohol in a chemical war, and plopped down next to him with a sigh that suggested both romance and arthritis. "You got kind eyes," she slurred, poking his cheek with a finger that looked like it had seen things. He froze. I froze. Even the subway car seemed uncomfortable. She leaned closer, close enough that I could see glitter on her eyelids from an earlier, more hopeful decade. "I was a dancer," she said, though nothing about her posture supported this claim. She laughed, then coughed, then laughed again, finishing by patting his knee like she was checking a roast. He tried to stand. She grabbed his sleeve. "Don't be shy," she whispered loudly. "I bite, but only on holidays." At the next stop, he escaped, leaving behind only a stunned silence, and the woman blowing him a kiss with a mouth that should legally require a warning label. Back in high school, I got stood up on a date. I was sitting there, feeling awkward and abandoned, when out of nowhere, a 40-year-old waitress plopped down across from me and started eating with me. It was incredibly kind of her, really. It's just that the sheer act of pity made me feel even worse. There I was, a teenager humiliated by a no-show, and suddenly I had a grown adult sharing a meal with me like I was some sad side dish. It was one of those moments that was sweet, but also painfully, hilariously awkward. A memory that sticks with you for exactly how uncomfortable kindness can feel sometimes. We were stretched out on the trampoline in my aunt's backyard. We were staring up at the stars and letting the night pass without conversation. It was one of those quiet moments that feels heavy in a good way. Crickets hummed, a plane crossed the sky and vanished. Then, the quiet felt wrong. Not silent, paused, like someone had pressed a finger against the night and held it there. My thoughts thinned out, slipping away before I could finish them. The stars went super bright, kinda like the Millennium Falcon when it jumps to hyperdrive. The next thing I knew, my cousin jolted upright and said, "Did I fall asleep, or did time go wonky?" I checked my phone. 2 hours had passed. None of us remembered talking, dreaming, or moving. We were still lying in the same positions, but the stars had shifted noticeably, like the sky had continued without us. The air smelled sharp, almost electric. My arms prickled, and for a second I felt watched, not by something nearby, but by something far above. We joked about it then. Aliens, missing time, cosmic hiccups. But the laughter felt forced. To this day, we have no idea what happened. I think about it sometimes when the sky is especially clear, and I wonder if something noticed us noticing it and decided we didn't need to remember the rest. That was the last time I was on that trampoline. When I was 12, riding my mini bike with the older kids in the neighborhood felt like being inducted into some secret club. They had real bikes, big, fast, loud, and I had mine, tiny and sputtering like a frog with a cold. But somehow they let me tag along. I felt important, like I was their tiny, wobbly sidekick on a mission that only 12-year-olds could fully appreciate. I spent most of the ride trying to look cool, leaning way too far into turns and pretending I could handle the hills like they did. Every bump made me squeal and wobble, but I grinned through it, hoping they wouldn't notice I was barely keeping up. Eventually, headed into the woods, following trails that seemed to go on forever. Somewhere deep in the trees, I attempted to lead us over a shortcut, I'd imagined, which promptly ended with me crashing into a pile of leaves and thorns while the older kids screamed with laughter. I may have been the smallest, slowest, and most accident-prone, but that day, laughing, racing, and getting hopelessly lost, I felt like I belonged to something epic.
And that one was one of my favorites. That was me. That was my story. I got a mini bike when I was really, really young because the kids behind me had big motorcycles and I wanted to be just like them. In fact, I remember when I got the motorcycle, I didn't have a helmet. So we went up to like the closest Kmart and the only thing they had is like adult helmets. So like here I am as a small child with this massive helmet on my head. It was some of the best times ever. Anyway, if you like what you're seeing, please leave a like, comment, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye.
My favorite Chinese restaurant used to be filthy, like aggressively filthy. And somehow, the food was incredible. Cash only, sticky menus, mystery smells, but every bite tasted like fireworks in my mouth. Then one night, a homeless guy walked in. Not down on his luck. Homeless. Apocalypse survivor, homeless. He was coughing, dripping, making sounds no human throat should make. The staff gave him food, which was kind. Watching him eat was not. And that's when I started noticing things. The vents, the silverware, The floor, the tables, nothing had ever really been clean. Not once. Suddenly, every dumpling I'd ever loved felt like a biological weapon. I never went back. Still, best noodles I've ever had. I once went to an Asian hot wings place famous for nuclear-level spice. The kind of restaurant where finishing the wings earns you absolutely nothing except bragging rights and permanent emotional damage. I ate them the normal way, with my fingers, and within minutes I was sweating, crying, and questioning every decision that had led me to that table. What I did not consider was what would happen 20 minutes later. Unfortunately, I was on my period and needed to change my tampon. And where I'm from, tampons don't come with applicators. You just deal with things directly. This is where everything went catastrophically wrong. Those wing spices do not belong anywhere near sensitive skin. Anywhere. The moment I tried to insert the new tampon, it felt like I had ignited a tiny firecracker. I froze in the stall, fully crying, unable to move, mentally reviewing every terrible life choice that had brought me to this exact moment. Leaving the bathroom was not an option. Survival was the goal. Eventually, I had to call my daughter and ask her to bring me wet paper towels so I could carefully clean myself like I was handling radioactive material. I spent 30 minutes in that restroom waiting for the fire to die down. When I finally emerged, I walked out like a slow-motion cowboy in an old western. I once almost died in a hospital, and something came to take me. I had a brutal infection, fever climbing, pain meds, no real sense of time. Sometime deep in the night, I opened my eyes and saw a man standing at the foot of my bed. He didn't look like he belonged in a hospital. He looked like he'd stepped out of another century. Long black coat, wide hat, lower face wrapped in cloth like some kind of outlaw, but his eyes were glowing blue, not bright, just wrong. He didn't walk toward me, he just appeared closer. Machines kept beeping behind me. The room felt heavier, like gravity had shifted. Then he raised his hand, slowly, inviting me to take it. And the worst part? For a moment, I wanted to. I actually started to sit up, like something inside me knew that if I took his hand, this would all stop. The pain, the fear, everything. Then something else hit me, pure panic. I froze, I refused. And the second I did, he dissolved, like smoke pulled into darkness. Later, I learned my fever had hit 105. The staff didn't think I was going to make it. Cooling blankets, ice packs, emergency meds. They said I was close, really close. I still don't know who that man was, or where he was trying to take me. All I know is, I'm very glad I didn't go with him. The first time my cats tried to protect me, I didn't understand why. I used to walk them every evening, no leashes. They just followed, like they understood the path better than I did. We always ended up near the small woodland behind my neighborhood, the place people avoided once the light began to fade. The cats always changed when we reached the trees. Their bodies dropped low, fur lifted, eyes locked onto spaces that looked completely empty to me. They'd spread out in front of me, forming a loose half-circle, like I was something fragile that needed guarding. Bells stopped moving. Birds went silent. The woods suddenly felt crowded, without anyone there. Then I'd feel it. Pressure behind my ears, a faint buzzing, like whispers just outside the range of hearing. Once, I heard my name, soft, deep between the trees. I didn't answer. The cats started hissing into the darkness, sharp, furious. and whatever was there backed away. The air would lift. I could breathe again. One night, they refused to go into the clearing, tails whipping, bodies tense. I finally listened. We turned around, and for the first time, they walked behind me.
And that's the end of the show. Thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. We appreciate that. We're going to leave some links up of episodes 1 through 5, so if you haven't checked those out, you'll see a lot of these videos that you saw here in those episodes. And we'll see you again next week with a brand new episode 6. Bye.